All right, it looks like it's trying to setting up your meeting for Facebook Live.
Oh, okay. Kristen Quindelbaum posted a video to your timeline. Let's see. Right, you're live. I see me. I see us.
I only see me right now. Oh,
I
it's
see.
really delayed, but that's okay,
yeah.
right?
Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the sound on Facebook so that way it doesn't like kind of do that echo thing.
Okay.
So I'm literally just going to focus on our conversation here on Zoom because I know it's going live.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll stay connected on Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect,
I'm just so excited that we're actually
Holy shit. 45 minutes later.
I know it. Oh my gosh, what a ride.
And on that note, I'm going to get some more tea.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So I know we're on Kristen's Facebook. So whoever is watching, thank you for watching. I'm Brittany Galipeau. I'm the happiness engineer. Basically, I have a master's degree in mental health counseling, and I started my mental clarity coach practice about a year ago. And we're here to talk about anxiety around the holidays. I'm launching a 5-week series before the holidays to just help people navigate through different topics that come up during the holidays that really stress people out. So like gift giving, time management, communicating with your loved ones, and all types of things like that. So I wanted to hop on with Kristen today to be able to really dive deep into using your intuition around the holidays, especially when it comes to anxiety. And we have our event coming up December 9th, which is real exciting, which is all about high functioning anxiety. So that's a little bit about me and what I'm doing.
Yeah, we're actually live on your page, Brittany. I don't know if
is
it's
it my page?
I don't know if it's my page too, but I did to your page, so I think so.
Oh, so it's actually a little bit of both of us. I guess we have to introduce both ourselves because if it's on my page, my people don't know you. And if I'm on your page, your people don't know me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am Kristen Quindelbaum. Hello. And I am actually an intuitive life coach. Brittany and I met at a women's retreat event earlier this year, and we just knew we had to do some work together. So yeah, we have an event coming up on 12/9, Understanding and Healing High Functioning Anxiety. We're really excited about that. And today we're going to talk about anxiety and intuition.
Yes, and I'm really excited. So we're kind of taking our two powers and putting them together, right? Because I have more of the mental health background. Kristen, you have more of the intuitive healing background. And so that's really what our event coming up in December is all about, is being intuitive and clearing those blocks that you might have around anxiety. And then I'm going to come in with some more information, tools, and strategies on how to better manage and move through anxiety. So around the holiday time, Kristen, I don't know what people come to you with, but you probably see it in your clients too around this time, is just anxiety around adding in all this extra stuff and these extra pressures from the outside, and sometimes from the and from the inside too. Actually, not sometimes, most of the time from the inside. And I think too around the holidays, it brings up a lot of nostalgia. So maybe some even like inner child things come up, which I know is definitely your house of work. So if you maybe want to talk a little bit about what people might be experiencing during this time, that would be great.
Yeah. I honestly feel like I think the holidays tends to trigger us just because it adds like that whole other layer on. But in general, like it's never about like what we think it's about, where we're like, oh, we got one more thing to do. It's always like that anxiety is building up already on the inside. It's just, you've just hit that last straw. But certainly I think that around the holidays, especially because we spend so much time around our families and they can be triggering for us.
Hmm.
It's good
Yep.
to set a lot of boundaries and just pay attention, like to how you're feeling and how you're responding to things, and just be curious about, becoming an observer, and be curious about like, oh, that was interesting how I got upset about that. Anytime we're triggered by something, it's just a notice. Our body's trying to let us know that there's something left unhealed within us. Yeah.
Definitely. I like to think of the emotions, and like when we're triggered emotionally, that's the communication of the body. And sometimes the body is triggered before we're able to create the thought that tells us exactly what it is. And so I feel like being intuitive, or really being more mindful and thoughtful with ourselves during this time, is so important. But I know that it can be so hard during this time when sometimes we feel that expectation of the holidays, of having to go and make Christmas cookies with everybody and buy everybody everything and see everybody, and and
Mhm.
just the runaround that can be the holidays, when I think sometimes we can lose track of the main point
Mhm.
of really just being grateful for those in our lives. And though triggers can arise, finding outlets for ourselves, and even still sticking with our routines to make sure we're really taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, I was going to say that self-care is super important during this time. It's important all the time, but just giving
Hmm.
yourself that space that you may not be getting when you're like in parties or around your family all the time, making sure that you
Hmm.
still have that space to connect, because it's really like my work is especially about like getting out of the head. Like I tell my clients, like, stop thinking. I don't want you to be thinking anymore. I
Hmm.
want you to be feeling all of your decisions. There's so much communication from the body, and when we pay attention to that, we can really get curious and try to learn, like, what is the lesson for me here.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So what's that process like, getting people out of their heads? Because for myself, being that my background's in cognitive therapy, which cognition really means thought,
Yeah.
right? When you break it down.
Mhm.
So what's that process like when you're taking someone who, I mean, our mind
Yeah.
is oftentimes what's driving the ship. So how do you help people kind of almost break away from that identity, or that way of being?
Hmm. So it's so interesting for me to talk about this, because I wrote a post the other day that was like, I used to be an analyst. Like I got paid to think about things. So
Hmm.
people who know me and in my corporate career know how logical my mind always was in corporate. So for me to say to them, I don't think about my decisions anymore, I feel them. They're like, what? Like, how do you even do that?
Right.
But when I first learned intuition and like really tapping into it, and after learning it, I could sense that how it has come up in years past, but I just didn't really understand it. But
Hmm.
really what I started doing was making small decisions. So like, do I want to wear, like, what feels good to wear, a blue shirt or a red shirt today? Or, what do I want to eat today? Um, you can even start with really simple things like, does this mug have a bee on it? And like, yes, it does. Versus if I like lied and said, no, it doesn't. What does that feel like in your body? So
Hmm.
getting really clear on how things feel in the body. And you can
Hmm.
also look at, like, examine the decisions that you make. Like if I decide to go to a party that maybe I didn't really want to go to, but I felt obligated to go to it, and I get there and I just don't feel good while I'm there. That's
Hmm.
still evidence that I didn't listen to my intuition and I chose to go to a party that I wasn't supposed to be at.
Yeah.
Um, so it's looking backwards. And I always describe, like, especially like for me, I could use like dating as a good example for me, because there were relationships that I was in where I would get red flags and I would come up with these reasons why I should ignore them. Oh, you're just
Mhm.
being too hard on him, you're whatever, give him a chance, and then what would happen is that red flag would come right back around and bite me later on in the
Mhm.
relationship, and I could look back and say, oh, I knew that something was wrong back then, but I chose
Mhm.
not to act on it. Looking for evidence like that, like whether it was you didn't make the right decision or you did, is still building evidence towards what would have been different if I listened to my intuition.
Mhm.
And when you can find the good things, like when I decided to get into coaching and I looked at my coach and my intuition said right away, like, you're going to apply for this program, you're going to be a coach in it. I mean, that's just it, intuition is immediate. It's your instinct. It's that gut reaction. And what
Mhm.
happens is like our mind comes in right after it to keep us
Mhm.
playing small, to keep us comfortable where we are, to like not encourage change in our lives. And the
Mhm.
mind starts, getting us in that spiral of thought at that point. It makes us question our decisions. So if you learn to notice your intuition in the beginning and trust
Mhm.
it, then you can look back and start building evidence around following it too. And
Right.
that's what I've done
Yeah.
in coaching, and it's changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, we all have an intuition. And I think we all have felt that feeling of being somewhere that we're like, we stayed a little too long, or, even just in conversation, right? Like this conversation ended like 15 minutes ago, but I'm still entertaining, this conversation. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Um, I think we all have kind of felt that pull. So how do you, um like you said, like it's that first reaction, that gut reaction. So how do you determine what, and this is me being cognitive, what's a intuition and what's an impulse? Where someone's being impulsive and they make a decision that might not be the best decision versus one that's of intuition.
That's a really good question. And I have
Mm.
never thought about that. I think that what comes to mind is emotion. I
Mm.
mean, that's like my first, like my instinct is to respond to you, like whether there's emotion involved in the decision.
Right.
If
Yeah.
you're really emotional, then maybe that decision is more impulsive versus if you're coming from a really grounded place,
Right.
you
So
know?
say like, yeah, I can see that. So say like let's use the relationship example, is like if your impulse is to please that person, but then there's this little gut seed feeling inside that's like, this does not serve me, maybe that's where the line is. But sometimes I know our mouths move a little bit faster than our intuition and our brain, and maybe that's where the disconnect might lie, when you're in that conversation and you decide to blurt something out, but then you instantly get that, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Or like, like that feeling. Maybe it's that, that 1 second of time to be able to put space in the noise, to be
Mhm.
able to decipher what's intuition and what's this just snap reaction. Because in the holiday season, when you're dealing with a lot of triggers, I can see where that impulse versus intuition can get in people's way, as far as communicating with loved ones, buying different things on Amazon, like, all the different stuff.
It's it's still really interesting to think about because I'm someone who tends to be very deliberate in the things that I say. So I don't feel like I
Mm,
speak out of impulse. So it's
mm,
interesting. It's really interesting to think about. Um because I feel that I'm very deliberate and intentional with my words.
mhm,
I I have a lot of faith in my intuition and I don't believe that I tend to act impulsively. If I would say if I'm reacting it's more of a reaction than it is an
mm,
action. It is more of a like an impulse to me would be um like when I when I'm stopping the car and I still have like the mom, I'm not even a mom, and I have a mom hand that flies over to the passenger seat like that. I don't know. Is that impulse or instinct? Now you have me like really
like, what is this? No, I know
yeah,
it.
what is it?
So
It's
I think it
interesting.
could even be like the mindless eating too, like around the holidays, where like
Yeah.
people just go and grab for the cookie before actually slowing down to think about like how many cookies have I already had, because it's not like wrong during the holidays to have some of your favorite things. I think that's what's part of that is what part of makes holidays so special. But when it comes to, I think, the mindlessness, like or just the not thoughtfulness, but also not just putting this like the little bit of space there, or maybe it's even like trigger versus like intuition, gut feeling, like the difference
Yeah.
between I'm being triggered here, and it's an emotion of fear and anger and like ugh. So instead you react impulsively instead of slowing down, giving yourself what you need, maybe taking a break from the situation or coming at them with kindness. You kind of act in a certain way based on a trigger versus actually taking the time to be like, do I really want to say this right now?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I really want to eat this right now? Or do I really want to throw my hand and like stop the car?
I definitely feel like emotion comes to play there because I don't feel that intuition is emotional.
Okay.
I really
Can you
don't.
explain that a little bit more?
When I'm making, yeah, it's interesting to think about and try to put into words.
Mm.
When I'm meeting people and you get like a gut feeling about a person, and you either like you feel aligned with them or you don't. I feel like, okay, so here's the thing. If you have a lot of emotion in your body, you actually can't access your intuition. It actually blocks you from your intuition.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's like emotion or trapped beliefs. Like it's why what I do works, because I'm able to help people connect with their true selves without those emotional blockers in the way.
Mm. Yes. I can see that because like when you're triggered, there's oftentimes an emotion behind it. And usually it's one that we don't want to show up, right? And it makes us feel certain things. And really like the intuition behind that is like, whoa, like I need to sit with this, or I need to like something's going on here, and there's some healing that needs to happen,
Mhm.
right, in those trigger moments. And so I think maybe the impulse is when we're acting based off of just emotion alone, and then like you said, the intuition is kind of almost like being covered like a blanket with
Mhm.
these emotions. So it sounds like what you help people to do is peel back the blankets
Mhm.
to uncover their true self, so that they can feel comfortable in all those situations, because they have a solid foundation of them that they really really connect with.
Mhm. They know what it feels like to be connected. That's the
Mm.
difference in our society, is we're so disconnected.
Mhm.
When I was first learning intuition, um, I remember I went to the gym and this is what I call the donut story. And the girls that I was in my first coaching program will remember this story.
Mhm.
I went to the gym and I went to the donut place afterwards, and I was like, I'm going to have a donut. I just want a donut. And I sat there in front of the store asking my intuition, do I want a donut? And I'm not getting any answer. This is where it comes in, where the emotion is blocking my intuition. So I can't even get a response, right?
Mhm.
And I realize what I decide is I'm not getting an answer, so it must be yes. So I went in and got the donut. But what I realized afterwards was that no answer was me numbing. So I was
Mm.
just, it was just it was no, I was numbing. My body was like numb and not responding to me because it was emotional at the time. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It was numbing, if that like, it was just a really big, it's like so stupid because it's a donut story, but it was like really like epic for me in that moment.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like that's what happens when you become more aware. Like stories like that become more apparent to you, and it might even be in hindsight. But like when you're sitting there and you're asking yourself, like, "Hey, do I want this donut?" And yourself is like being numb is a communication, right? It's basically telling you like, "Hey, you need to look at this,"
Right.
or like, "We're uncomfortable here."
Mhm.
So it's almost like your intuition's trying, but there's just this like wall or this thing that's just getting in the way from it giving you like this clear cut, no, you really don't want the donut answer. Um,
But it's
so
really
I
a
can,
testament to that, how emotion blocks our intuition, you know?
mm-hmm, 100%. And I think emotions are so heavy during the holiday season. So that's really important for people to know. And maybe even one of the takeaways from this video is, when you're feeling emotions, right? Because emotions are a part of what makes us human, and they are communicating something for us.
Mhm.
So, right, like there's a purpose to our emotions. They're what tell us, way back in the caveman days, like when you got scared, it was you really needed to run away from that saber-toothed tiger. Like there was a reason and a purpose for our emotions, right? But I think nowadays, when the same fear response is coming from just a conversation with your mom or your dad or your grandparent or your aunt or your uncle or a cousin, or a friend or whoever, that same fear response is coming at them, and then it's harder for us to actually tap into our intuition to say, you know what, this is not okay. Like I don't have to have this conversation, or I can stick up for myself a little bit here, or like maybe I don't need to stay at the holiday party this long, or maybe I can say no to this,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe that's one of those takeaways, is look at your emotions and what they might be blocking, or what they might be even telling you, if people aren't in tune with their intuition just yet.
To me, it's like it's an it's more of a reason to spend that time alone, journaling,
Yeah.
meditating, getting into nature,
Mhm.
whatever feels good for you, to release some of that emotion, even if it's screaming in your car. I mean, doing something that physically releases that energy is
Mhm.
going to be really important to stay connected, because otherwise, the more you suppress it, the more disconnected you are, and you can't really stay fully present and aware in the moment. And it's harder
Mhm.
for you to see, like, without those triggers coming at you left and right.
Mhm. True. So being able to put space there,
Mhm.
um, or even scream, right? Like whatever it is that releases that energy from that emotion. I just did a post not that long ago about crying in the car. And like I basically said, like it's okay to cry in the car when you finally get space,
Mhm.
and you don't know why you're crying, that song hits you just the right way. Like it's okay to have that time to release, and in fact it's healthy because it's almost like you're just washing it away. Water itself is so cleansing, and it's cleansing for a reason. We wash ourselves with water for a reason, and I think when we're crying, that is like almost like a release valve for things that maybe we have pent up or just held onto for so long, and we've just had enough. It's just going over the edge.
Yeah. I always tell my clients that same thing as well, because I used to get so frustrated when I would have coaches guide us through meditations, and they would say, like, think about this really happy time in your life, and I would be bawling my eyes out,
Hmm.
and I always say to them that when you give yourself, just like you said, the space to feel, Your body's
Mhm.
going to feel and process whatever it needs to, what's most
Mhm.
important at that time.
Right. And I think we get ourselves going, especially when we're not just doing our normal day-to-day stuff, but we're adding in shopping, or we're adding up in like Friendsgiving, and then the regular Thanksgiving, and maybe you got another side of the family you got to go to that Thanksgiving, or your cousins are in town and you got to go see them, and you add more things that take up your time, which would have initially been more of a release or even just like a self-reflect time.
Mhm.
And so when it hits us, when we're in the car or we're in the shower or we're just on our own, we finally have a second to breathe and all these emotions come and bubble up. It's almost like they're saying, finally,
Yeah.
here we are, listen to me. Um, and
And it's
really what those emotions are, it's ourselves.
Mhm.
Sorry,
I think
I
it's
cut you off.
important to note that it's not uncommon to feel resistance too when you get to a point of wanting or needing to express yourself and you're feeling resistance towards it, especially
Mm,
if you're used to suppressing.
mm,
Um, I the first time I tried screaming in the car to release anger, I was terrified about what other people might think I'm the crazy person in the car next to them. Um, but it's calm. I want people to know that if you feel that resistance, it's not uncommon to feel that. It's just about noticing, okay, I'm resisting expressing myself here, and just being curious about it, and then
mm-hmm.
finding, not just choosing to suppress it at that point, but finding a place that feels comfortable for you to express.
Yes, definitely. um I 110% agree. I have not tried screaming in the car. I've screamed in a pillow. But I might try screaming in the car. And I find, like, and I'll just use myself as an example, when I get mad or when I get triggered in some way where it's anger that I'm faced with, I'm not good by any means with dealing with my anger.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I haven't yet made friends with
Mm-hmm.
it. Where I've been able to truly listen to it and what it's actually telling me, and the way it comes out is sadness, because I've made friends with sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just very interesting how like when we have those moments, the way it's like the path of least resistance is the way that it'll come out. Kind of like how people who I remember having friends, and we'd be getting yelled at by their parents for doing something silly when we were kids, and they would be laughing, and it was like that was just the way that their emotions
Yeah.
showed their nervousness
Mm-hmm.
or their upsetness. And so I think being okay with the way that you show it, but also just kind of recognizing that this is one big journey when it comes to our emotions, and really kind of making friends with them all and listening to them and not being so afraid of them, because they are us,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah. Especially with people who are very logical minded,
Mm,
and less emotional, it's important to notice patterns, like look for the patterns in your life. Like for me,
mm-hmm,
I used to go shopping and I used to
mm-hmm,
work myself to death. That was my way of coping. We all have different coping mechanisms too. Um,
mm-hmm,
and honestly, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I didn't express any emotion.
mm,
I was super stoic. And I mean, I remember I would have friends that say, like, I didn't think you were capable of crying. Like, it wasn't a thing. I didn't express my emotion. I thought that
mm-hmm.
holding it in was strong.
Yeah.
So, typically the people that are like, I'm just not emotional, they just don't know how to express their
Mm-hmm.
emotions. Because we all have,
Yeah.
like you said, we all have emotions. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of if and how you're expressing them.
Yeah, definitely. And I give, a lot of credit to those who are stoic. It was always hard for me to be stoic. I was one of those people that, I saw something nice. Like, I can't watch America's Got Talent without crying because I'm like falling in love with the stories. And I'm like crying because I'm like, that's so sweet.
I know.
But it's so true, because I think it's interesting because I look at those people and I'm like, wow, you guys got it together. And that does not mean that you're still not feeling any of those things and not still going through any of the stuff that, you're hiding behind those walls.
Yeah. They don't know how much they don't have it together, honestly.
Right.
Is the
right.
truth. I mean,
Sure.
and I can say that because I was that person for a long time.
Yeah.
And I know other people that are that way still, and still have, especially like older generations that tend to think that they have to, like be the strong one in the family, or, hold
Yeah.
down the
And
fort.
yeah, right. Take care of everybody.
Yeah.
And be strong for everybody too. And I think that there's a lot of reasons, right? Like why that was and why that still continues to be. But then being able to tap into our intuition and being able to, actually recognize and kind of like see our emotions or what it is they're trying to tell us, and then kind of be like, all right, I see you there, but what is it that my intuition is trying to tell me? Being able to actually tap into that to honor yourself actually really does help you be a better caretaker and be there for people even more. And, it's that whole thing of self-care isn't selfish, right? Taking care of yourself, putting on your mask on the airplane before helping somebody else put on their mask on the airplane. And I think that we just kind of keep going, like our cups are empty, but we just keep going. and then we're playing catch up, and then our intuition is just really tired, or our intuition really gets to us, and then we end up sick, or we end up hurting ourselves in some physical way where it's like, I told you I needed this rest and you're not listening.
Yeah. Imagine what the world would be like if we all were working from a filled cup.
I know.
And just giving from our overflow. Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would be absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Like giving authentically, which is really like what this season is all about. So how do you have an overflowing cup that you can give from this holiday season?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I want to hear your answer.
My answer is exactly what you were just talking about in terms of taking care of me. So being super aware of what feels good to me and what doesn't feel good to me, and being true to that, and setting boundaries where I need to, and just staying true to myself, because the moment I'm not true to me, then that builds up resentment in me, you know what I mean? And I'm starting to act from a place that doesn't feel good. And then it builds up that emotion, and it just causes this disconnection, not only with me, but with whomever I'm feeling this towards. Because
Definitely.
there's that stuck energy between us. So for me, I think it's all about like keeping my vibration high and taking care of me in the best way that I know how, because then I can show up for people as me, me with my filled cup. So my routine is super important to me too. So maintaining that, and I'm like really protective of it too. So I almost don't like to have things planned like real early in the morning, because then I'm like, I can't get my routine in, and then it messes my day up. And so I can be really protective over it too. But I'm learning to make adjustments and just find, like, just because I can't do it at the time, maybe I always do it, doesn't mean that I should just let it go altogether,
Yeah. I think that's what can be really hard for people is, you make this time for yourself, and then something comes up where it gets in the way and you're like, well, I do want to be flexible here. So then they just kind of drop it instead of making sure that you really do take time for yourself. And I think there's fun ways that you can stick to your routines and things, especially if you have maybe people visiting for the holidays that want to see you. Like maybe it's your gym time. Maybe you invite them to go to the gym with you, and then you're doing something that is good for the both of you. And actually, there's a lot of science behind why good conversation starts on long walks. And so if you can just like go out and have that nice long walk, I know it's cold and it was snowing in upstate New York, and I know Buffalo gets way more snow than we do. But, to be able to just walk on a treadmill side by side together, I think that can just do so much good. Or for me, it's my meditation practice in the morning. And so sometimes it's, well, if I know I don't have the half hour, 45 minutes that I usually take, then I'm going to need to cut it back to 15 to 5, whatever it is, or breathing exercises throughout the day, just being able to figure it out. Because taking care of us during the holidays and during any time is very important. Especially if we have loved ones that we feel responsible for, especially if we have loved ones that we feel are looking up to us, or, feel any sort of pressure from, that we, from the bottom of our hearts, want to help. That's when we need to take care of ourselves the most, and not show them what it's like to burn the candle at both ends, but how to come from a place of service that is 110% all of us, giving them 110% of us and not just the leftovers.
Right.
Yeah.
Being the example. Actually, last year, when my sister came, she comes every year for Christmas, and I found a meditation that was geared around the holidays.
Cool.
And I think it was maybe around releasing anxiety. I don't remember exactly, but it was really cool. And I remembered her not wanting to do it. And I was like, come on, just come meditate with me. It was like an 8-minute meditation. And then she was so happy that we did. So yeah, I agree. Like finding that space to incorporate people. And even if you have an Apple Watch, it has like that Breathe app on it. I think it's called Breathe. I don't know, but it's this app where it will like, you can set it to breathe for like a minute. And it'll just like vibrate on your wrist, like as you inhale and exhale. And you just do that for a minute. It's just like a minute. So if you get triggered at a holiday party, you can just walk away, even if it's when you use the restroom, like finding a minute to just breathe for a second. Like the breath is an amazing thing to come back to.
Yes. The breath is oftentimes the physical manifestation of our mind and it coming through. And so when we can actually stop and control our breath, we can start to just see one thought at a time instead of the wave of thoughts that's coming in along with the emotion and everything else. So instead of riding the wave, we're controlling the tides. Yeah. For a metaphor of sorts. Yeah, definitely. So I haven't been watching Facebook. Do we have any questions or anything on here?
I did pop over there. I don't see any comments.
Okay.
But I don't, it's on your timeline, so I don't know if that would make a difference, but I don't see any comments, so.
No, I don't see any comments, but that's all right. We might get some on the replay. And we might even get some, we'll definitely get some on our live event, December 9th. So yes. I'm super excited for that.
Me too.
Yeah. So I want to thank you, Kristen. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, for those of you who haven't seen that event, it is on December 9th. And Brittany will be walking through some tools around high functioning anxiety. And I'll be doing clearing, intuitive clearing, where we'll clear the biggest fear that you have that's causing you anxiety. That event is at 7:30 or 7 did we do it?
I believe it's 7 to 9. So you have an hour of clearing and
Yes.
intuitive readings, and I have an hour to give the tools and strategies. And we're going to be doing some breath work as well. So,
So
it'll
it's
be
going
really
to
exciting.
yeah, it's going to be a beautiful group healing.
Mhm.
And we have only 3 tickets left, I think, before the webinar. So I don't know if anything's sold between now and then, but we're really excited.
Very excited. I know. So if you really enjoyed this conversation, if you know somebody that you feel would really benefit from the conversation or our event coming up, Understanding and Healing High Functioning Anxiety, send them our way. I speak for myself, but I feel like I speak for both of us when we say we just want to help. And so any communication, we love connecting with you. So any questions or any connections, you just want to say hi, like, please don't be shy. So yeah.
All right.
Yes. So thank you so much for your time tonight, Kristen. I appreciate you. And I am so excited for our event. And I'm so excited that we actually got this to work.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Now, fingers crossed it actually shows up. So
I know. Well, it says it's live right now. Let's see if it actually stays when we get off of this thing.
Right.
Awesome.
All
Well, you have a
right.
good night.
Thank you. You too.